right, welcome back. We have an update from Sigyn Therapeutics. It trades on the OTCQB under the symbol SIGY. It's a development stage medical technology company headquartered in San Diego. Happy to welcome back CEO James Joyce, or Jim. How are you doing today, Jim?
Anna, I'm doing good. Good to see you.
You too. Okay, so let's jump in. Sigyn Therapeutics is a developer of blood purification therapies. So tell us a little bit about the previous experience of you and your team in the field.
Well, Anna, with the exception of our CFO, all the members of the Sigyn team worked at me at a company called Athlon Medical. This is a company that I founded, and we grew the company from a single shareholder startup to NASDAQ company with more than 8,000 shareholders and a peak market value of about $200 million. While at Athlon, we developed a technology called the hemopurifier from concept to becoming the first FDA-approved therapy under emergency use authorization to treat an infectious virus. And this was Ebola virus. And in fact, the technology was the impetus for the U.S. government to change their definition of a treatment countermeasure against emerging pandemic threat to be inclusive of medical devices. And that's something we were really proud of, because you fast forward to COVID-19, and the first 5 therapies that were approved under emergency use authorization by FDA were all blood purification therapies. And most people wouldn't recognize that. Additionally, with the technology that we developed at Athlon, the hemopurifier, it was the first therapeutic candidate to receive 2 breakthrough device designations from FDA, one for oncology, one for infectious disease, and subsequently named by Time Magazine a top 25 invention and a top 11 medical breakthroughs. So, we've leveraged our unique skill set here at Sigyn Therapeutics to create a next generation technology that we call Sigyn Therapy.
Fantastic. So explain, how does your lead product, Sigyn Therapy, compare with your previous developments at Athlon Medical?
Well, in addition to being able to address viral pathogens, we designed Sigyn Therapy to be able to address bacterial toxins, including endotoxin, which is a primary trigger for sepsis, which is a leading cause of hospital deaths in the United States. The device has also been demonstrated to address pro-inflammatory cytokines. And a lot of people during COVID-19 learned about what's so-called cytokine storm, when there's an excessive response by the immune system that can lead to multiple organ failure and death. So we have a device that can simultaneously address the pathogen sources of inflammation as well as the inflammatory targets themselves. So we've now advanced through preclinical studies, first in mammal studies, and we're now preparing for first in human studies in end-stage renal disease patients. These are patients in dialysis.
And so talk about why you're choosing to first enroll dialysis patients in clinical studies.
Well, Anna, quite honestly, at first it was a patient population that we saw that was very enrollable in a feasibility study. And the feasibility study is designed to demonstrate safety. And we're creating what's known as a modular study, which allows us to bridge off of a safety study into pivotal studies of multiple indications. So our original intent was to leverage this study into studies of other indications such as sepsis. But as we started talking to the dialysis industry, we interact with both of the leaders in the industry here in North America. We started to recognize that these end-stage renal disease patients have issues that we can address. And so it wasn't just to enroll them to demonstrate safety. We started to learn a lot about these patients and how the potential ability to extend their life could impact the dialysis industry in general. So there's about 550,000 end-stage renal disease patients in the United States alone. These patients are dialysis dependent. They generally go into the clinic 3 times a week, 4 hours of treatment to have what's essentially kidney replacement therapy. And in the absence of this, they'll only live for a matter of weeks. So this is something they're dependent on. And we learned that these patients, their mortality rate annually is about 20% once they become dialysis dependent. That means the average lifespan of a dialysis patient is approximately 5 years. And then as we started interacting with the dialysis industry, we recognized that some of the features of Sigyn therapy could perhaps address issues such as endotoxemia and chronic inflammation in these patients, which lead to cardiovascular disease and sepsis, which is the number one and number two cause of death, or number one and two cause of early death in these patients. So we've designed a study to incorporate our device in series with their normal dialysis cartridge, so nothing changes for these patients, except we're going to demonstrate our product is safe and that we can reduce endotoxin levels as well as levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines as a means to help curb this endotoxemia and chronic inflammation that is continually occurring in these patients. And generally, once a patient's on dialysis, they generally, greater than 50% of these patients have these issues. Now, there was also a business component about this. When we were interacting with the dialysis industry, it became quite clear that if you could extend the life of these patients, it was very valuable for the dialysis industry. 2 leaders in North America is Fresenius Medical Care and DaVita Health. For each month of extended life for Fresenius's patient population, that adds about $1.2 billion in revenues. And for DaVita, it adds about $1 billion in revenues for each month of extended life. And extended life of 1 month, that adds 1.7% of expected life for these patients. These patients are also hospitalized quite a bit. And when they're out of network, the dialysis companies don't make their revenues. So, we calculate that for each week of reduced hospitalization is worth about $300 million for Fresenius and about $240 million for DaVita. So we have a strategy to start off early commercialization and clinical opportunities in end-stage renal disease patients. And our intent is to bridge into some of the bigger markets, such as sepsis, where there still is a significant unmet need.
And do you have site locations for the study identified?
We do. We have 3 site locations: San Antonio, Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and New Haven, Connecticut. And we have principal investigators identified, and we've collaborated with the dialysis industry to develop the protocol that they think is appropriate.
And finally, Jim, can you wrap up by giving us a quick sketch of your endeavors to optimize the benefit of cancer therapies?
Yeah, I know I'm short on time, but I encourage people to reach out to us or go to our website, because this is a very exciting area. We've discovered that chemotherapy, the most commonly administered drug to cancer patients, and immunotherapeutic antibodies, which are the top selling drugs to treat cancer, both of these forms of drug agents are very poorly delivered. And a lot of the interference of delivery is caused by what are known as circulating drug decoys. And we're developing systems to eliminate these decoys prior to the administration of these drugs, with the intent to optimize their delivery. And then we've also developed a product that extracts chemotherapy back out of the bloodstream after administration to further reduce toxicity. And I'll point out that chemotherapy, generally less than 3% of the drug gets to its intended target. So the rest of it is off target, and it has more of a likelihood to cause toxicity than patient benefit.
And a quick question, Callie wants to know, are your studies in the US or are they abroad?
No, all of our studies that we're conducting or intend to conduct are here in the US.
And you can close with this question. Devin wants to know if you can explain what test trials or results are in the pipeline. Can you give us a timeline?
Well, in the pipeline, is our feasibility study. We've drafted what's called an investigational device exemption for submission to FDA. This is a 12 to 15 patient study, primarily to demonstrate safety, but we are enrolling patients, the dialysis patients, that we include the cartridge in series with their normal dialysis treatment. And we're able to use these patients as a control subject, where in week 1, we quantify how their changes in blood chemistry looks with dialysis alone. And then in week 2, treatments 4 through 6, we get to quantify how blood chemistry changes when we include our device in series. And again, primary endpoint safety, but we have a unique protocol design that lets us look at some potential observations of having a real impact.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for this update. Important work you're doing, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Anna.
All right. See you soon. All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be right back.